It's Friday and I am excited for the weekend. I hope you are too. I was talking to my little grandson who's, what is he, maybe 20 months old now, something like that. He's just a little guy and he's learned a new word. His word is Friday. He's saying Friday, Friday, Friday. He has no idea what he's saying, but he's going to grow up and probably be pretty excited about Fridays. I'm excited about this Friday because we're talking about winning at life, which we do every Friday. And I hope you are ready to go into a weekend. This weekend is going to give you an opportunity to do a little bit of evaluation, I hope, if you lock in on some of the stuff we're going to talk about today. And that is a follow-up really to these last couple of weeks where we talked about clarity. And then last week we talked about your convictions. I got another C word for you today as we think about winning in life. And the word today is commitment. Commitment, or your commitments. We'll make it bigger than just one commitment. It's commitments. Your commitments are really important as you really try to live the life that you want to. So welcome to Chasing Greatness. Thanks for being with us. Thanks for sharing, downloading, helping us spread the word. We're growing and that's because of you. And so I'm really grateful for that. I appreciate so much you listening and sharing, but I hope that more than that, you're getting something out of this that's helping you transform and be a better person, the person that really you were designed to be. So let's talk about commitments today. I always make this statement that your current habits and behaviors are perfectly designed to give you your current results in life. So if you really, I'll go country boy on you here for a second. If you don't like, what you're getting, or I'll say it this way, you're getting what you're getting because you're doing what you're doing. So if you don't like what you're getting, you need to change something and make it different. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So as we dive in here, I just would remind you that who you become will ultimately be determined by what you do. And so I'll repeat that one more time. Who you become will ultimately be determined by what you do. So what are you doing right now? What are the things that are being really respected in your life? They're being over and over. They become routine in your life that are giving you these results that you're getting. Now, some of your results are probably the results that you want. I hope so. I hope you've got really great things happening. But chances are you've got some things in your life that you say, man, Randy, I'm not sure I want financially what I've got going on right now. I'm not sure physically I've got, the right things in place to give me what. The truth is the things you're doing, they're giving you the results that you're getting. And so there's something you can't control, but your commitments, they're not one of them. You really have total control over your commitments. I'll repeat the psychologist we referred to, Dr. Henry Cloud here before. He always says you're ridiculously in charge. And that's so true when it comes to your commitments. You are in charge of what's going on in your life. So if you really wish things were different, you really are going to have to do something different. So let's talk about that today. And I'm going to give you just a couple of things that you could think about as it relates to commitments. You'll ultimately, again, get to decide what habits you put into your life. But if you could do one thing, or if I could encourage you to do one thing, I think it would be to put in place this commitment or this habit to grow every day. To grow every day. I think that is a really just underappreciated, commitment that we can put into our life. Now, my wife and I'll never forget when we brought home our first daughter from the hospital. We had these 4 daughters, and the first one, Hannah, I remember when she was born, they made us take her home from the hospital, which was kind of crazy looking back. Like, we had no idea what we were doing. But they told us, they said, if you can just keep her alive for a couple of days, you get to bring her back to the pediatrician. And so we survived the first couple of days. And then we come to the pediatrician, and I'll never forget, they weighed her, and they took this measurement. They actually did this before she left the hospital. They weighed her, they took this little measurement. And then when we took her home, I think we survived maybe 2 weeks. We had a checkup, maybe it was a week, couple of weeks. But I remember we got there a couple of weeks later, and Hannah weighed a little bit more than she weighed at birth. She'd already gained back her birth weight, which they said that was really important. They measured the circumference of her head again, I think, and the length and all that. And she started to make a little bit of progress. They had this chart. I remember that, is she in this percentile or that percentile? And they just had some standards for growth. And the doctor said, you guys are doing great. Just keep her alive a couple more weeks, bring her back, 1 month checkup. We did that at 2 months, 3 months. I think 6 months, maybe 1 year check. We just kept taking kids. It seemed like we were always going to the pediatrician to let them pull out the tape measure and get the scales out and how you guys doing? And we look forward to their encouragement. Like, you guys, this parenting thing, I think you're going to survive if you just keep, kind of feeding them and taking care of them and putting them in the right environment, loving them, swaddling. We put blankets around them, all that. They taught us how to do that. It was so fun to learn all that stuff. But as I look back on their growth, I remember all four of them when we first had the babies. I say my wife had the babies. I just was kind of, spectator there, and it was basically pain-free for me. So I shouldn't really take any credit for us having the babies. But I remember all four of them. They would fit in these two hands right here. They would all four. I could hold them all four. And now we're 30 years into this parenting thing. Our oldest is just turning 30 here this week, actually. Happy birthday. Shout out to Hannah. But I can't hold them in my hands anymore. They're grown women now. Now, as I look back on their journeys, I never remember a day where I came home from work and I looked at them and I thought, wow, you guys grew today. That didn't really happen. And in the same way, as a leader or just somebody who's really trying to live your life, growth is really hard to see. There's a commitment that has to be in place. And once we make that commitment, we start to take these little incremental steps. And it is crazy what happens. Little bitty commitments turn into big transformation down the road, big progress eventually down the road. But it is down the road. It doesn't happen in that day, or it doesn't seem like it happens in that day. But when you layer this commitment to growing every day on top of each other, and when I say growing every day, you get to pick what that looks like. You get to decide, is there an area where you're trying to grow? But once you determine that and you begin to take some steps, and I can't tell you what that is, but I can give you some ideas. You can read a book to help you grow. You can listen to a podcast. Hopefully this is helping you grow. You can have a conversation with a friend or a mentor. You can have a coach that could help you grow. You can go to a class or attend a conference or a seminar. You can take a course online. There's all kind of things that you can do to help you grow. But if you don't have your calendar reflecting this commitment to growth, you don't have growth scheduled. We talked a few weeks ago about noise. You don't have to schedule noise for it to make it onto your calendar. You do have to schedule quiet if it's going to make it. I think you have to schedule growth as well. Growth won't typically make it onto your calendar, or intentional growth won't, unless you put it there and set aside some time for it. So when is that going to be reflected on your calendar? Are you going to have some time every day where you say, I'm going to take 10 or 15 minutes. I'm going to try to level up today. I'm going to try to get better. I think when we do that, we make that commitment to grow every day. It's really helpful, and we begin to make progress. And so get you a small target, put it on your calendar, and say, okay, I'm gonna spend some time on this. Now, let me say one other thing about growth. It doesn't always have to be intentional. Sometimes we can be going through hard things and we can actually grow a lot. I've always heard that adversity can increase your capacity. And I think it's really important for us to, when we go through something hard, let's pay attention to some of the lessons in that as well. So if we're a learner, we're going to pay attention when things are hard. We're going to pay attention when things are even seemingly easy. We've got extra time on our schedule. We put it on our schedule. It's so important that we make a commitment to grow every day. So I think that's a big commitment we can make. Here's another one. I'll give you another commitment that you might consider. And that is this, to win the first hour of the day, to win the first hour of the day. Years ago, we were living out in Fort Worth, Texas. This has been, I should say decades ago. I was living in Fort Worth, Texas. And I remember it was the opening day of baseball season. And we just had the opening day of baseball season here this year, just a few weeks ago. And I remember that year, the local team, the Texas Rangers, they're there in Arlington, and they were playing a game, and they had won that night. And the sports caster after the game made this statement, which was kind of a silly statement if you think about baseball, but he said, you can't win them all if you don't win the first one. Now, there's never been a team that's come close to winning all the games in a baseball season, 162 games in a season. That's not going to happen. You're not going to win them all. But his point was really true. If you lose the first game, it's impossible. It's mathematically impossible to win them all. And truthfully, nobody's ever going to win all the games in a baseball season, but it is possible to go out and win every day. I mean, there's no question that teams have that opportunity, but you would never be able to win them all if you lost the first one. I think there's a principle there that is true for our lives as well. And so if you want to win the day, I think you have to win the beginning of the day. And today I would ask you, or this weekend, as you go into the weekend, I would ask you to consider, what are you doing to win the first hour of the day? I think so many leaders I get around, so many people I get around, they're sporadic at best in how much they're winning. And a lot of that goes back to, they don't have the first hour of the day locked down, a routine that's going to set them up for success in the rest of the day. Now, as you begin to think about that first hour of the day, you would say, what would go into my first hour of the day? What would determine whether I win the first hour of the day or not? And I would just push it back on you and say, you get to decide. You really do get to decide what winning that first hour of the day looks like. But if you don't decide, I can tell you, noise will make it on your schedule. Apathy will. You won't really be framed up in your mind to think in a principled way during the day. You'll have a relationship you'll get into that'll be hard, and you'll respond in a negative or a critical, or maybe you'll show anger because you didn't take the time to get centered and to know, like, this is the way I want to think today, and this is the way I want to react to things, or even I would say to respond to things. We don't want to react. We really want to be people who respond. And so I want to encourage you to win that first hour of the day. And I would just ask you to think about a couple questions here. First of all, what effect would having a morning routine of setting aside time for personal and professional growth look like in your life? Like, what would it look like? Don't ask me. Like, you get to decide again. What would that look like for you? And what effect would that have on your life and your leadership, if you think about it? And then secondly, if you could, let's just go ahead and put it on paper. If you could design the perfect first hour of the day, what would it look like? And decide that this weekend. And then let's go into the beginning of the week and let's dominate that first hour. I think that's really important. And so those are just a couple of commitments today that you can lock in on: winning the first hour of the day, and just making a commitment to grow every day. I think if you can do that, and then I'll just go back to what I said a moment ago about the girls as they began to grow. Let's just trust the process. I think that's the third commitment I want to make, is just like, I'm going to trust the process. Things that last, they say, aren't built fast, and people that grow, actually, it usually happens slow. And so I want you to really trust the process and make sure that you really do put faith in the fact that if you sow these seeds of growth every day, and you might even, just like the pediatrician said, hey, let's measure how long they are in the circumference and the weight. You might even come up with some markers, like, how are you going to measure success here? But if you'll do that, it'll be shocked at what happens over time. And so let's don't go into the weekend here and just, not give some thought to these commitments that we have in our life. It's great to have clarity and know where you're going. We talked about that a couple of weeks ago. If you haven't listened, go back and check that out. Last week, we talked about your convictions. I mean, you can believe the right thing, but if you don't have the right commitments, you will never get to where you want to go, and you'll never become the person that you can. Abraham Lincoln said this one time. I'll read this to you. He says, commitment is what transforms a promise into reality. And so I think so many times we make these promises to ourselves, like, I'm going to do this, I'm committed to this. But that commitment, and not just commitment, I would even add, I'll hesitate here to add anything Abraham Lincoln said, but I'll add to the fact even having a commitment is not enough. We've got to take action on that. Those commitments have to be built into our schedule, built into our routines. I think Abe, if he were around, would still would agree with that. And so let's make sure we not only have our commitments, but we are acting on those things. Let's commit to growing every day. Let's win the first hour of the day. And I think if we will, we'll be on our way to chasing greatness, which really means that we're reaching our potential and we're helping the people around us, because we've grown. We're gonna help be able to grow the people around us and help them be great as well, which I think that matters. So let's keep doing what we're doing. I want to just encourage you this weekend. Do some reflecting on your commitments. Do you have the things built in? Where are you getting success from your commitments, and where are those commitments that maybe you wouldn't even say commitments. You would just say, where are those bad habits in our life right now? They're kind of wrecking where we want to go. They're getting in the way of what we want to do. The results we have are not the results we want. So we need to change some things. So let's make some decisions on that this weekend. We'll be back with you next week. We'll talk about winning at work on Monday. But in the meantime, keep chasing greatness. You're making a difference in the lives of the people around you. My old friend Mark Miller always says your capacity to grow determines your capacity to lead. Let's make sure that we're doing all we can to grow ourselves so that we can grow others. All right. Love you guys. See you next week.